Congresswoman Lauren Boebert is courting more controversy. The Colorado Republican tweeted this picture last night showing her four boys holding semi-automatic guns. You'll remember that one of her Republican colleagues, Thomas Massie, made headlines last week with a similar holiday photo of his family.
Now, House Democrats were already calling for Boebert to be disciplined for her repeated Islamophobic comments about Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Stead Herndon is a CNN political analyst and national political reporter for the New York Times. Stead, welcome. I got to read some tweets because there's a back and forth that's relevant here. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez retweeted that photo and tweeted, tell me again where Christ said use the commemoration of my birth to flex violent weapons for personal political gain. LOL at all the years Republicans spent on cultural hysteria of society erasing Christmas and its meaning when they're doing fine all on their own. And then Boebert replied with, AOC uses her position as a congresswoman to attack my boys with their Christmas presents. First, I don't know if it's a good idea for Boebert to go online here and admit that her 8-year-old, who's not tall enough to ride Space Mountain, now has a semi-automatic rifle if those guns are real. But also, this plays right into what Lauren Boebert wants. This AOC back and forth seems like the strategy. That's the point of putting the picture up in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. This is an attempt to kind of shift the conversation onto terms that we know that the Congresswoman Boebert will be more comfortable with. They want to have that conversation about guns. They want to move this to the culture war about Christmas and its meaning, and wants to say wants to imply that Representative Ocasio-Cortez attacked her children, which that tweet did not do. But we know this is an attempt to dissuade from the original facts of the situation. What the Congresswoman said about Ilhan Omar was undeniable. Nativist, was undeniably Islamophobic, and that is what caused the Republican Congresswoman, to apologize herself, right? That was that she already apologized for the action that she took initially. This is now an attempt to switch the conversation from that. But we know that these are Republicans who rather have the turf be on guns, be on Christmas, be on that culture war than the identity politics that they themselves are playing, and that Islamophobia that Congresswoman Omar had to experience.
But talk about the war on Christmas. Is there any better Exhibit A than brandishing semi-automatic weapons? Where in the Bible, I'm just curious, does it say brandish your semi-automatic weapons in honor of Christ's birthday? I mean, that's basically what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is saying, but a lot of people are saying it. What Massie has done here and Boebert, it's so far from the spirit of Christ. I mean, I don't know when they last read their Bible is, but it's so, I mean, okay, so that's one war on Christmas that they're, I guess, turning into their own bastardized version of it. But then it's also days after a school shooting, yet another school shooting. How do we think the families in Michigan feel about this? How do we think all of the traumatized students, all of the traumatized sheriff's deputies who had to go in and see the aftermath of that? I mean, beyond any culture war, just the incredible insensitivity is, I think, really striking.
Yeah, it shows the narrow focus that Congresswoman Boebert is thinking about, is only thinking about how to switch the conversation back to terms that she is more comfortable with, and is not talking about that larger implication, that larger feeling, that the fact that the country is coming days off of this shooting. Now, I can't speak to how the victims in Michigan or other places would feel, folks who have experienced gun violence would feel about that photo, but I can say that, you know, as the son of a pastor who spent a lot of Christmases and Christmas Eves and church services listening to the Nativity story, I have never heard the Christmas story be linked with explicit political acts like this and the need for guns and weapons. This is their own version of Christmas and their own version of a story that just suits their political interest.
Speaking of political interests, I want everyone to listen to what Representative Dan Crenshaw said recently about a wing of his party.
Two types of members of Congress. There's performance artists, and there's legislators. Now, the performance artists are the ones that get all the attention. They're the ones you think are more conservative because they know how to say slogans real well. The grifters in our midst know that the quickest way to your heart is to convince you that a fellow conservative betrayed them.
Speaking of there at that event, Matt Gaetz, Louis Gohmert, others. I mean, Liz Cheney, a conservative Republican, her home state doesn't even consider her a Republican anymore. It really is the redefining of what it means to be a conservative.
Absolutely. And Crenshaw's making an interesting point there. They're trying to refocus the energy, saying you should look at people who are legislating in your interest, kind of that mantra of getting back to kind of core conservative values. The problem for him is this is a party that's been overtaken by Donald Trump, who is the biggest example of someone who used slogans and language and contradictory conservative stances to find his way into popularity of the Republican Party. The congressman there is trying to fight a war that has already taken place. This is Donald Trump's party, and the quickest thing Republicans can do in Congress or to raise their national profile, to fundraise on that grassroots level, is to align themselves with him in word. That is totally separate from legislation. That's totally separate from policy making. The base has decided that what is most important is that Trumpy rhetoric, that aligning with him in their cultural grievances, even more so than actually enacting policies. They're going to run on the words, whether Congressman Crenshaw likes it or not.
Ested Herndon, thank you.
Thanks, Ested.
Thank you.